On today's episode of Parenting Great Kids.
The question is not, do you love your children? We love our children by nature. The question is, do your children feel loved?
Right.
There's a huge difference between that because most parents are sincere, and they do love their children. They want what's best for their children. But there are many children who grow up, especially through those teenage years, and they don't feel loved. And they come to adulthood. And so they're really hindered in having good relationships because they've never learned that whole concept. So explaining, first of all, to children, there are different ways that people express love. And let's talk about those things on the child's level. Let's talk about those 5 love languages.
Welcome to Parenting Great Kids. Here's your host, Dr. Meg Meeker.
Dr. Gary Chapman's The 5 Love Languages has helped millions with over 20 million copies sold worldwide. Now, in his new book, The Love Language That Matters Most, Dr. Chapman shows how to personalize love. So it's not just spoken, it's truly felt. Dr. Chapman, this is very exciting for me. Welcome to Parenting Great Kids.
Well, thank you. I'm delighted to be with you.
Thank you. At first, when I saw the book, I thought, well, why write more? The first book was so good. But now I see why you wrote another edition, because you really help us get what you're trying to teach in the love languages. So what inspired you to take a deeper dive into 5 love languages?
Yeah, I like to call this book a follow-up to the original book because through the years, people have asked me 2 basic questions about the love languages. They said, Dr. Chapman, in your book, you mentioned that in these languages, there are dialects to the languages, just like in spoken language, we have dialects. But you don't describe any of the dialects.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, you're right. And I've been keeping that on the back of my mind. The other question they've asked is, how does your personality interface with your love language? So in this new book, among other things, we're addressing those 2 issues. And I teamed up with Les and Leslie Parrott because, as you know, they've been in the field of marriage and family counseling for many, many years. And so I and my publisher contacted him about putting together, first of all, a premium assessment to the 5 love languages. We've had a free assessment for years, one for married couples, one for single adults, one for teenagers, and one for children. And it's free. And my publisher, who runs that website, said that they have had 165 million people who've taken that quiz.
Wow.
Yeah, but this quiz, we call it a premium quiz. You have to pay for this one. But what it does, it not only gives you the love languages in the order of importance to you, but in each of the love language, we talk about several particular dialects. And the premium assessment helps you determine what your primary dialect is within that language. So now you're not just speaking broadly a language, you're speaking it more specifically to the individual. And then we talk about your personality, and it tells you. So you get a 15-page printout. Then you click another link, and I sit down with Les and Leslie, and we go through the assessment with you and explaining what this is telling you about yourself. So now imagine if both the husband and the wife take the premium quiz, they have that information. This book then is following up with that premium assessment. And so we're really excited about it. We think it's going to help people be more successful in really communicating emotionally to their spouse or their partner or close relationships of any kind, for that matter.
Well, I think that's so important because you're absolutely right. I read 5 love languages, way back when it first came out, and I just thought, this is brilliant. And I know, in speaking to kids in my practice and parents in my practice, I tend to, put it out there. Do you know your child's love language? Do you know your spouse's love language? And it's so critically important. So if people take the test, they pay for the test, then do they get a session with you and Doctors Parrott individually?
It's not a private session, but what we're doing is simply going through the assessment with them.
I see.
And emphasizing that this is telling you about yourself, just explaining the thing with them. So we think it's going to be helpful, even though it's not a private, session.
Yeah. Yeah. Wonderful. Of course. Um, Throughout the book, you talk about a lot of different things and you talk about the mistakes that we make, how love is lost in translation. And one of the things that you talked about that I love is empathy, because I think that empathy is critical in a relationship and communication. But I never realized the full breadth of empathy. Why is empathy, not sympathy, so important in a relationship?
Well, I think by nature, when we're having a conversation with our spouse or anyone with whom we have a close relationship, they're telling us something, and we just by nature are thinking about our response, what we're going to say to them. Whereas empathy really focuses on understanding what they are saying and what they're feeling. It's looking at the world or seeking to look at the world through their eyes rather than giving them an answer. Sometimes a wife will say, well, I just had a really hard time today and da 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 da. And he says, well, what you ought to do is, he tells her what she ought to do. She wasn't asking for advice. She wanted to share her life with him. And empathy is realizing that what we want to do in close relationships is share life with each other, things that happen in our lives, how we feel about those things. And so when the other person's talking, we're the listener.
Yeah.
We're not the responder. We're the listener. And so we're saying, well, tell me about that, honey. What exactly, how did that impact you? How did you feel about that? And we just keep asking questions until we can actually say, well, I can see how you would feel that way. That makes sense to me. And then we could say, if you wanted to, is there anything I could do that you think might be helpful? Now you're asking if they want, if you can do anything, and that's good because now you have a sense of what they're thinking and what they're feeling, and you're communicating. If I can help in any way, I'd be happy to. And now they're asking you whatever they may say. Well, honey, I don't know anything you can do, but maybe just think about me or pray for me or something like that.
Right. Something.
Yeah. But
Well, the reason I ask about that is because at the beginning of the book, you sort of talk about how we miss the mark. And I think that in this day and age, parents really struggle with their kids and kids really struggle with their parents because they're very disengaged because of screens. And I think that parents have a difficulty understanding why their kids do what they do, particularly during the teenage years. And I think that their response to kids is very typical of what a husband, for instance, might say to his wife. I know my husband says to me, oh, you had a hard day. Here's what you need to do. Parents are very quick to tell their kids what to do so they keep them on the right track. However, it doesn't work because I sense they have difficulty sitting in their kids' shoes and having empathy for their freshmen in high school and listening to them. So can you talk a little bit to the parents out there who feel their kids are distant or disengaged and the kids are kind of lonely, but they just don't know what to do for their kids?
yeah. Well, I think by nature we do tend to be teachers. We want to teach our children, and so we're going to tell them what they need to do in every situation. But often we're telling them before we even understand where they are, and that's why empathy is so important. The teenager is sharing with you that they had a hard day at school, and you say, "Well, honey, tell me about it." And they'll tell you a little bit, and you ask a follow-up question, then you ask another follow-up question, and you ask another follow-up question, and you can say, "Well, I can see how you would be hurt by that. What do you think would be the best thing for you to do?" And we're helping them now begin to think. Now we're seeing the world through their eyes, and now we're asking them, what do you think you ought to do? And they share some ideas, and you say, well, that might be helpful. I could see that.
Also, it helps them feel more connected to the parents. Kids are so lonely and they're so disengaged and not by their own choosing or by the parents' own choosing, but there's so much stress in homes now, I'm finding, particularly in the evening when the kids are home from school. And I think that connection with their parents is critically important. And I know you don't go into this book, but really it's sort of the purpose in a way of the book. How do parents connect on a deeper level with their kids? Is it a matter of finding out the child's love language and then learning the dialect there? Is it broader than that?
I think it is. Certainly, you need to understand the child's primary love language. But I've said through the years to parents, please don't hear me saying you only speak the child's primary love language. No, heavy doses of the primary love language, but you want to speak the other 4 languages as well. We would like a child to learn how to receive love in all 5 languages and how to give love in all 5 languages. That's the healthiest adult. Most of us did not receive all 5 love languages growing up. And many people come to adulthood who did not feel loved by their parents. That's why I've often said to parents, the question is not, do you love your children? We love our children by nature. The question is, do your children feel loved?
Right.
There's a huge difference between that because most parents are sincere, and they do love their children. They want what's best for their children. But there are many children who grow up, especially through those teenage years, and they don't feel loved. And they come to adulthood. And so they're really hindered in having good relationships because they've never learned that whole concept. So explaining, first of all, to children, there are different ways that people express love. And let's talk about those things on the child's level. Let's talk about those 5 love languages. And which one do you think would be most important to you? What means the most to you? And the teenagers might say, gifts. Gifts. That's what.
Car. Right. A car will make me feel wonderful, Dad. Yeah.
But that's what I encourage parents to have the teenager read the book for them called A Teen's Guide to the 5 Love Languages. It's written to the teenager, helping them understand the concept. So if they're reading that book and the parents are reading the book that I wrote, The 5 Love Languages of Teenagers, you're going to have some good conversations about this whole topic of love, but it's going to be in a personal way. So that's what I really would encourage parents to do who have teenagers, because you're exactly right. Teenagers, by and large, are so much into the screen that they just talk about functional things. They don't talk about what they're thinking, what they're feeling, or what happened at school, or any of that stuff with their parents. So, but if we talk about the love languages and all of that with our children, especially teenagers, but younger children, of course, they can pick up this idea early in childhood. You don't have to wait till they're teenagers.
Right.
Yeah. So,
does it matter if a parent and a child have very different love languages, or can they transcend that just by understanding the other person's love language?
Well, I think by nature, we all tend to speak our own love language, because that's what, if we don't even know the concept, if we feel loved, there's a reason why we feel loved, and we tend to express our love to somebody else in the same way that we would want to receive it. That's what I did when we got married. I knew nothing about love languages in the early days of our marriage, but I gave my wife words of affirmation. I wouldn't have called it that, but I just told her how nice she looked and how much I appreciate what she did. And I probably told her a dozen times a day, I love you, honey. I am so glad I married you. I love you, love you, love you. But one night she said to me, you keep on saying I love you, but if you love me, why don't you help me?
Yeah.
And I said, what do you mean? And she said, well, you don't ever offer to wash the dishes or vacuum the floors or clean the toilet. You don't offer to do anything. And I didn't say this, but what I was thinking, what are you talking about? My mother did those things.
Yes.
We bring our history with us, okay? Looking back on that, she was telling me her love language was acts of service. I was giving her words, but in her mind, if you love somebody, you help them, And so we kind of stumbled upon that. I told her, I said, well, honey, I don't mind washing dishes. I learned how to do that, but I didn't know you wanted me to do it. And she said, well, it would sure be a help to me. So I started washing the dishes, and I said, I can vacuum the floors. I said, I know how to do that. I said, but now I don't know how to clean toilets. And she said, well, I can teach you.
I can teach you. It's a pretty easy thing to teach. In the love languages, once you know your spouse or your child's love language, not knowing the language doesn't, it's the beginning of the journey. It's the beginning of learning to love somebody really well, because as you say in the book, there are times when you're trying to fill that person's or speak to that person's love language where we go in the wrong direction. For instance, you write a fun story about a man who's, I don't know if her love language was acts of service. She was tired. She was going to work, and he decided to make her a beautiful dinner. And he made a souffle, and she came through the door exhausted, and he had this beautiful dinner laid out on the table. And she looked at it and said, I'm sorry, I can't eat it. I'm just too tired. Oh, by the way, I had pizza at work and went up and went to bed. I can feel for that man. But how do we timing and intensity in fulfillment of the love languages matter too? Can you address that? If somebody's say your child's love language is words of affirmation. Parents are great at sort of saying, oh, I'm going to tell my child he's great at soccer, even though he isn't, or I'm going to get him tutors so he feels better about himself in algebra and so forth. But a lot of times complimenting our kids and affirming them over and over can harm more than help. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think sometimes when we're giving them words of encouragement, which is one of the dialects, we're really putting pressure on them.
Yeah.
You good at that now. Come on, you're really good at this. So now you're encouraging them to, if they're going, and they're just feeling pressured that they got to do something, and maybe they don't even want to do it.
Right.
Maybe we enroll them in, little league football, and they don't really want to be there. I mean, the child should have some say in terms of athletics, in terms of if they want to be involved in that particular thing. But I think parents are, in the parent's mind, they are really speaking words of affirmation to that child because they're encouraging them to do something here. Now, you can do this. You're smart enough to do this. Algebra is not hard, Well, algebra is hard. First of all, parents need to know that. I'm looking back on my teenage years now, and so they're sincere, but they're giving them, they're speaking a dialect of words of affirmation that really is discouraging the child, making them feel pressured,
Yeah.
So far better to think in terms of, what do they really need to hear? And it may just be words of affirmation, when you see them doing something that is positive, to say, it was really nice the way you talked to your sister. I heard what you said to her. Or if they're in the sports, you say, I noticed that, let's say they're in basketball, I noticed that you went over and talked to John after he missed that shot, and you gave him a word of encouragement. He said, that's really neat. I said, he felt badly about missing that shot, right? He said, oh, I know he did. Now you're having a conversation on a real emotional level just by affirming something that you observed in their life,
So you're speaking to their love language really on a deeper level. Talk about quality time, because we do that too. I think a lot of times parents know, I want to spend quality time with my son or daughter. Often they don't know what that really looks like or what quality time means to the child, but they plan it and it doesn't always go well. Can you just talk about how parents can finesse quality time, giving their kids quality time in a way that's meaningful, not in a way that's going to blow up in their face?
Yeah. Well, I think it's different at different ages, obviously. When they're a child, some quality time can just spent playing with the child, doing something that they enjoy doing, whether it's a game, a board game, or whether it's, throwing ball in the backyard or something, but you're actually playing a game with them, but they have your full attention. You're not answering your phone if you're playing a game with them. You're letting it go to voicemail. You're not, interrupting conversation with them. But in the context of playing a game, depending on their age, you can have conversations with them, And just a simple thing like a young child brings home an art project, something they did at school today. And the parent looks at it and says, oh, that's nice, honey. I like the colors in that. You did a good job. Well, there's no conversation. That was just a monologue. But if you say, what were you thinking about when you painted that? And the child said, I was thinking about the time we were down at grandmother's house and, uh, and we were outside having a picnic under the tree and the dog ate my hot dog. This is the dog and he ate my hot dog and I didn't like him then, but I like him now. And well, now you're having a conversation because you're asking, what were you thinking about? What were you feeling when you did that? Because children have thoughts and children have feelings, but monologue is one thing, just affirming them with a word is one thing, but having quality time is giving the child your undivided attention. And if it's you have a conversation out of whatever it is you're doing.
Yes. Well, yeah, and engaging, because I think parents, and I would speak when we were raising our kids, I was great at this. I was great at the one-way conversations because I would ask our kids a question and halfway through them answering it, I was formulating my correct response to their answer. So I wasn't listening. I was so convinced that I was right and I needed to turn the conversation, and I asked questions, not to understand the kids, but really to figure out how to tell them what to do. But that's really the wrong approach. Don't you feel, what should a parent be going for when asking their kids questions and listening? Why do we need to listen so well to our kids?
So that we can know our children. Because many times we think we know them, but we don't really know what they're thinking, what they're feeling, because we don't ever ask questions and we don't ever listen when they talk to us about it, whatever it is.
I have a little morning rhythm that helps me start the day with intention. Coffee, a quiet prayer, and just a few minutes to pull myself together before everything begins. One product I always reach for, something to brighten my eyes. Because let's be honest, when my eyes look tired, I feel tired. And that's why I love Thrive Cosmetics Brilliant Eye Brightener. It's a waterproof eyeshadow highlighter stick that's incredibly easy to use, even on the busiest mornings. A quick swipe in the inner corners, and I instantly look more rested and awake. But what really sets Thrive apart is their mission. Every product purchased helps fund and donate to communities that need it most. Over 150 million in donations and counting. That's beauty with a purpose. And that's something I want to be part of. Amplify your everyday. Go to thrivecosmetics.com/Dr. Meg for an exclusive offer of 20% off your first order. That's Thrive Cosmetics, CAUSEMETICS.com/Dr. Meg. You've heard me talk about Hungry Root before, so you know how much I love it because it truly simplifies my life. As a busy pediatrician, mom, and grandmother, finding time to plan meals that are actually healthy used to feel impossible. What I love most is how Hungry Root plans all my meals and groceries for the week, fills my cart, and delivers everything I need to eat healthy every day. It's personalized to fit my dietary preferences, my health goals, and my budget. One of my favorites lately, the coconut chicken with rice and peas. It was delicious and ready in no time. I've tried meal kits in the past, but I found Hungry Root works so much better for me because of the variety. There are over 50,000 chef-crafted recipes and more than 1,000 grocery items. Everything from smoothies and snacks to salad kits and ready-to-eat meals. You're going to love Hungry Root as much as I do. For a limited time, get 40% off your first box plus a free item in every box for life. Go to hungryroot.com/Dr. Meg and use code Dr. Meg. That's hungryroot.com/Dr. Meg, code Dr. Meg to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life. As a pediatrician, I've helped many kids and their families who are struggling with anxiety, depression, grief, all the hard things. And I've seen how difficult it can be to actually get help. Maybe you've tried finding a therapist, but ran into long wait lists or high prices or providers who don't take your insurance. That's where Rula comes in. Rula is a healthcare company that connects you with a licensed in-network therapist quickly and affordably. Most people pay just $15 per session, and depending on your plan, it could even be zero. You start by answering a few simple questions, and Rula matches you with therapists who meet your needs. You could be meeting with someone as soon as tomorrow. Thousands have already turned to Rula for support. And if therapy has ever felt out of reach, I want you to know there is a better way. Go to Rula.com/Dr. Meg. That's RULA.com/Dr. Meg to get started today. And when they ask how you heard about them, tell them Parenting Great Kids sent you. You deserve care from someone who cares.
But listen, every single day, a child is having experiences. And I don't care what age they are. If they're little, and if the mom is working and dad is working, maybe they're having an experience in preschool, with some other people. So to talk about what went on there, what happened there, what did you like about today? Was there anything hard for you today? What did you feel today? And what did you like what your teacher did or said? Or just conversations about the time we were apart. So it's saying, I want to know this child. I want to know what they're thinking and know what they're feeling, because only then can you really address their deepest need. And one of those deepest needs is the need to feel loved by you. And the fact that you are listening long enough and asking enough questions that you have the sense of, you know what this child is thinking and feeling. You're beginning to get the picture of kind of who they are so that you can address it. Now, let's not minimize the fact that parents are parents, and we are to have guidelines or rules or things that we do and don't do. We're teaching our children some things to do and not do. No question about that. We need to do that. But the child is going to be far more responsive to whatever rules we have if they feel loved by us.
Yeah.
And if they don't feel loved by us, they're far more likely to disobey whatever guidelines we've laid out for them.
I'm always surprised, and I shouldn't be, after 30 years of doing something, you feel like I shouldn't be surprised by anything. But so often kids will say, well, my parents just don't love me. And the parent, often who I know, we live in a small town, their mouth will drop open. What are you talking about? I adore you. Of course I love you. But there's a disconnect there. They're operating on different planes. And it's tricky to convince a parent that, yes, your feelings are very intense towards this child. And I'm sure it would be the same in a marriage. Your feelings towards your wife are very intense. But as you said at the beginning of the program, it doesn't mean that they really feel loved for you. So that's where we really need to do intentional work. Now, this is a very practical book. You talk about tools and habits. I know this is putting you on the spot. What are the top 3 or 4 actionable exercises from the book that you think are some of the most important to begin to practice until they really understand how to how to tap into their spouse's or child's love language?
Well, let me start first with spouses. One is to ask questions. Say, honey, we read that book, or we discussed that book, or we talked about our love languages, and I know your love language is, and you tell them, right. I said, am I still right about that? Yeah, that's still my primary love language. Well, once we got that clear, and we both understand that, then we can bring up ideas and say, honey, would it be really helpful for you and really be meaningful to you if I did this or did that or whatever, in keeping with their love language? And they say, honey, I appreciate that, but no, that's not really that's not really all that meaningful to me. You see, you talking about one dialect, one way to do it, and they said, well, that's really not, no, I'd be far better if you would da 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 da, like the man that fixed that tremendous meal for his wife without, first of all, letting her know that he was fixing a big meal. So she ate pizza at work with her friends just before she came home, so she wasn't hungry, and she was just worn out. And as you said, you almost cry for him because you put all
I
that
can
time.
I can empathize with that man because I'm the cook. My husband and I work together in the same office, but I always leave early because I'm the much better cook. And you do that and you get a beautiful meal. And then they're like, I'm just so tired. I don't want to eat. And it hurts your feelings. But I've learned from that. So, okay. So what else? What are some other actionable exercises that listeners can do?
I think one, and for parents, this will work for children too if they're teenagers, and they already know the concept. But for a husband to say to his wife, honey, on a scale of 0 to 10, how full is your love tank? If you've discussed, if they both are familiar what you mean by a love tank. I'm using a gasoline tank in a car as a metaphor. If it's full, you can drive a long ways. If it's empty, you better be looking for a gas station. And so, but to say on a scale of 0 to 10, how full is your love tank? Or you could say, how much love do you feel coming from me this week? And if they say anything less than 10, you say, what would be the best thing I could do for you this week that would fill your love tank? And what they say may not be their primary love language that particular week. It may be one of the other love languages because circumstances often in that particular week, something else will be more important for them. So I think checking in like that, and you can do that with a teenager if you've talked about the concept, to say, on a scale of 0 to 10, how much love you feel coming from me this week? And they say anything less than 10, you say, what could I do to bring it up to a 10? And now you know specifically what would be helpful to them on that particular week. It's just a way of keeping this in the front burner of the whole family. If every once in a while we're asking each other that question, and the kids may start turning and asking you that question. Well, Dad, on a scale of 0 to 10, how full is your love tank? How much love you feel coming from me? And if you could, if they're really loving you, you say 10. If they say they say, well, about a 7. If they say, what could I do this week? Well, you know what you could really do would really help me. And you tell them something to do. So it's just a way of surfacing this whole concept. We love each other and we want each other to feel loved in our family. So it's such an important part of healthy families. It's not everything, but it's an important element in having healthy families is that everybody in the family feels loved. And we want to love other people outside the family too. So if you get it going in the family, you can take it outside the family.
Oh, absolutely. And for the security, emotional health, even physical health of kids, doing what you're talking about is critically important. What does a parent do, say, because I see this a lot too. You have a family, you've got really busy, 2 or 3 really busy kids. Everybody's running around at night, a lot of fatigue in the family, and tempers will fly. And you go to your child and say, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much love do you feel coming from me? And the child looks at you and goes, none. You just don't like me, Mom or Dad. What do you do then? I mean, obviously that's a red flag, but how does a parent follow up on that? Or a spouse who gets that response from their spouse?
Yeah, I think the first thing is a question. Why would you say it? What do you think makes you feel that way? Rather than saying, what do you mean you don't feel loved by me? You know I love you. Yeah.
Yes.
Now you're condemning the child.
That's usually what they get. Yeah.
That's right. But to say, tell me about it. What is it that makes you feel that way? And they say, well, you do this and this with Johnny, but you don't ever do anything with me, or they tell you what it is. Yeah. So asking questions is a whole thing of empathy and curiosity. Asking questions of the other person when they tell you something about how they feel is really important part of the process. Because if you don't ask questions, you're not going to really understand them and where they're coming from.
And even if you don't like their answer, listen to it anyway. I think, that's brilliant because it makes kids feel so important, so respected, and so loved. I want to touch on personality, love and personality, because you talk about that in the book, because personality really plays a big part in communication of love to another person.
Well, the premium assessment and the book will each help them discover what their personality is like. And there are a lot of personality formats, and so this is just one of those formats. But introvert, extrovert's probably one of the ones that people are most familiar with. But there's dialects within that in that framework. Let's say that quality time is their language. So it's Friday night, a husband and wife are having dinner together. Maybe this is a young couple, but maybe they don't have children yet. And he says, honey, how about if we get up early in the morning and take a hike up at Pilot Mountain and just spend the morning together tomorrow? And she says, honey, I've got Saturday already planned. I mean, it's already planned. He said, oh, you can put that off till next Saturday.
Yeah.
Yes, she wants to have quality time, but she's not the kind of person that can spontaneously jump into quality time.
Right.
She wants planned quality time. She's the kind of person that a date night, we just agree that Thursday night's going to be a date night. Now, she's got it on her schedule, and whatever you want to do that night is fine. She's open because it's on her schedule. So it's not just understanding the personality, the love language, but it's understanding the personality of the person and the dialects within that language. Here's another example. Let's say that one of you is an introvert, one of you is an extrovert. So birthday is coming up for the introvert. And this extrovert gets these plans. And so this wife says, honey, it's going to be your birthday Saturday, so I want to take you out to dinner that night. Okay. So they get in the car and start driving. She said, I'm going to drive because I want to surprise you. Well, he thinks they're going to a restaurant. They drive up in front of the house of one of their friends. And he said, what are we doing here? She said, well, they wanted us to stop by and say a word to them before we go and say happy birthday to you. He walks in, there's 30 people there, birthday party. Well, he's going to adapt and he's going to be fine. He's going to act fine and everything. But in his mind, he's thinking, oh, honey, I would have enjoyed it so much more if we could have just gone out to the restaurant together. It's the two of us. He doesn't like being made the center of attraction with a bunch of people out there, So understanding their personality does interface and impact how you speak their love language, So I think the whole thing of thinking about personality and how it does impact and affect how we express their love language is going to help a lot of people because a lot of people are not thinking about this.
And I would encourage, often wives feel misunderstood by their husbands. And I think sometimes we expect, I've been married 45 years and it's fabulous once you get past 35 or 40. Anyway, but the early years, you really don't know that person. You don't know that they don't like surprise birthday parties. And I think that we often expect our husbands to just know what we're thinking and know what we want and know that we really want to have a surprise birthday party. Even they don't, but they don't. And I think that it's important for spouses to tell their spouse what they like. I have told my husband, I never want a birthday party. Yeah, but no, please. I know you like them. I will throw you one, but I don't want it. And that's fine. I don't know that we should ever take it personally if our spouse tells us what they like and what they need. For instance, an introvert may need 3 hours on a Saturday just to sort of debrief from the work, let out some of the tension, be alone, and then go back and do something with a spouse. It doesn't mean they don't want to be with a spouse. Some introverts genuinely have a need just to be alone, like extroverts have a need to be out with people. Yeah. What are your thoughts about, spouses or kids taking charge of telling other people, the close people, what they need and what they're really like? This is my personality.
Yeah, I think it's exceedingly important. Otherwise, we're going to be trying to do good things and thinking we're doing something really that's going to be really meaningful to them, that's not going to register for them like it would register for us. And we have to recognize that. But that means we have to talk. We have to share things with each other about ourselves. And you're right. When we get married, oh, yes, we were in love, but man, there's a whole bunch of stuff we didn't know about each other. That's probably why I've invested my life trying to help other couples, because I remember at the stage in which I thought, oh, man, this is not working. We're just too different. I mean, but we got to realize, we are different. We're going to be different. But listen, we're on a team. Let's learn how to work as a team and not competing with each other. So,
And
oh, man.
And I think that, when you have a couple where they have high intensity careers, there is that natural competition, and that doesn't help. So, but that's a whole nother show. One final thought: when you have a parent-child or two spouses who have very, very similar personalities and they clash all the time, how do they break through that?
I think as parents, remember, we're older and should be a little smarter. So I think we're the ones that have to take the initiative to try to understand what's going on here. Because sometimes they're just doing what they've learned by watching us. If as husband and wife, we speak loudly to each other and kind of yell and lose our temper once in a while, the kid's going to do the same thing. They're just observing what you do, and they're doing the same thing you're doing. So it's time for the parents to talk to each other about it and say, honey, have you noticed this? We need to change some things here. Because I tell you, one of the most sobering questions I ever asked myself about being a parent: what if my children turn out to be like me? What if they drive a car the way I drive a car? What if they handle money the way I handle money? What if they, handle differences the way I handle? I mean, just walk through life. And I made some significant changes in my life in response to that question.
Excellent question. Because they will. Kids internalize a lot of your behaviors, and I did it with my mother and my father, and I see my grown children doing it with themselves too, and it is scary. This book is bold. This book is deep, and I think it is such a beautiful follow-up to 5 Love Languages, because here you really get into the nitty-gritty. Okay, now you know the concept. Now you know your loved one's love language. Let's get to it. Let's really make it matter. And I think it's just, every parent, every spouse, even kids, teenagers, read the book. My guest has been Dr. Gary Chapman, and along with Drs. Les and Leslie Parrott, he wrote The Love Language That Matters Most. If you like the 5 love languages, even if you know what they're about, but you've never read the book, first read the book and then read The Love Language That Matters Most. It will push you. It will help you grow. It will help you know more about yourself, your spouse, and your kids. And I got to make my husband read it. I've already read it. Look, it's so good. Dr. Chapman, thank you so much for joining me today.
Well, thank you. I enjoyed our chat, and thanks for what you're doing. So keep up the good work.
Well, thank you. Thank you.